Oh, happy 1017 day. It's the day. It's a very special day to me. It's 1017. And of course, many of you know that I have coined the 1017 run. And I am here today to demystify any misconceptions and confusion that surrounds the 1017 run. Now, many of you may know that I started doing the 1017 run uh, towards the middle of the summer, possibly. And it evolved because I was not getting enough run time in, and I wasn't liking my run. So I thought to myself, well, how can I do that? Because normally what I used to do is go out and run, and I would always run at a probably a too fast pace, even on my longer runs, and I would just try to go. And I found myself always kind of running in that 8:30 to 9 minute pace area. So at some point, I decided, how can I force myself to slow down? And it dawned on me that a 10-minute pace for me was slow. And how I figured that out was basically kind of thinking about my 10K time and then multiplying it by like 1.2. There's no science. That's total bro science. I don't get to talk about this enough on the podcast, so I'm here to explain it exactly. And so I came up with the 10-minute pace, and I thought, well, that's good because as it turns out, that's about a pretty low heart rate for me. Yeah, I know it was a 10:16 pace for my Ironman, and while that is admirable, and as I explained to someone else, it makes me both want to be happy and cry at once because it was not what I was shooting for. The gist of my 1017 experiment was to get myself out there running more and not be beat up. And we have a podcast called "This is Mike from the Crushing Iron Podcast," and we have a podcast called "Running Slow to Get Fast," and that was the one where that's where I patterned the 1017 run. And the 10-minute pace was a zone 2 heart rate for me. So what I had intended to do was go out for runs um, in the summer. I was still kind of building up, getting back into Ironman shape. I wasn't fully committed to it all. And so the 10-minute pace became my goal. And anytime I dropped under the 10-minute pace, according to my watch, which I would look at like every quarter mile, I would stop and walk until my pace hit 17-minute pace, hence the 1017. So I would do that over and over and over, and I would get done, and I was running, like some nice runs, 8 to 10 miles, and feeling excellent when I finished. And it was really helping me enjoy running again. And I've had, as much as we kid around with it, I've had a lot of people actually tell me that they started embracing it and it's really paid off for them. And I thought it was going to pay off for me. And what I didn't get into very often was the fact that I modified the 1017 run as I got a bigger base and I felt better about my running. So I would start doing things like 9:45, 17. And anytime I would drop below 9:45, I would start walking. And then at certain times I would do 9:30 and blah, blah, blah. So then I started doing intervals where I was slowly pushing myself up. And, I wasn't going super fast yet, but then I did an Olympic in August, maybe late July, something like that. And I ran pretty well. I ran like a 8:10 pace, I think, for that. And my legs felt really good and I didn't feel beat up, and I just kept training right after that. So I felt like my speed ultimately was there, and I was more concerned about building base. So that's what I did. And I kept running the 1017. But then towards the end of my training, like I said, I would go into 9:30 17s or whatever like that. And then what happened is I got closer and closer to the race. What I would start doing is going out and trying to uh, simulate the first half of the marathon. So my goal, in complete confession, for this race was to go out for the first 3 miles and run an average of about 9:50 to 10. Slowly warm up, and I I thought I was doing it. I was looking at my watch, and I noticed later that my first split 1.2 miles was 8:20. So maybe something was off. I kind of looked at my records, and there was a spike in there. So it's very possible that I did run at 8:20 for that first mile, which really did not. It never feels like you're going that fast. But anyway, I settled in, and then I was hoping to, over the next 3 to 4 miles, get that average pace down about 10 to 15 seconds to the 9:35-ish area, and then I was going to keep easing the overall pace down to 9:15 at the turnaround. Well, that was my target, but sorry to say that about 11 miles in, I was having a hard time even holding the 9:45 that was at my average at that time. So around 11.3 mile mark or 4 or something like that, I turned off my watch, and then I just went by feel. But because I had hoped to get my overall pace by the end of that first lap to around 9:20, 9:15, 20. And then my goal from there was just to hold it until like mile 20. And I knew then that I'd be in the ballpark. And if I could just squeeze it down maybe like 10 seconds per mile on an overall pace for the last 6 miles, then I would be right in that sub 4 range for the marathon. But as we saw, it did not work out. And I ended up averaging 10:16 for the entire marathon. That was my pace, which in retrospect, if I would have had a watch on and noticed that my pace was 10:16, I certainly would have spent a little more time getting to the finish line. So I would have capped a 10:17 average. But once again, the confusion seems to lie at sometimes in the fact that my goal was 10:17 pace, but that is not at all the case. That was just my training method, and I still believe in it. I think what happened to me on Sunday was a tough day on the bike, and I just didn't quite have what I thought I had. And I thought I took it easy enough on the bike, but I mean, I was going a little bit. I know. I mean, it's a solid pace. I'm not upset about it. I was really secretly working behind the scenes with modified 1017 methodology to turn it into hopefully a sub 4 hour marathon, and which would have been about a 9:05 pace. But I was obviously a minute off that per mile, and I don't know. I think I didn't walk a lot. I walked probably 4 or 5 aid stations on the second loop. Took my time, and I did go to the bathroom a few times in Porto Johns, which is typically not my jam, but for some reason I just especially early on, I didn't want to be, messing up my shoes pretty much. So I spent some time in the Porto Johns, and then of course, a lot of you saw my soak in of the finish line, which is maybe a little bit extravagant, but I really enjoyed it. And so, that pace could have been probably more around the 10-minute pace like I typically run. But all to be said, I am still a staunch supporter of the 1017 methodology. And as soon as I start recovering a little bit more, I've been swimming, and I will do some spinning on the bike and for a week or so and keep swimming. And then maybe at some point next week, when my toenails kind of heal up, I will get out there and start pursuing my 10-17 method again. And I think it's a good way for me to actually go through the winter. Just keep running and running to enjoy it. Anytime I drop below that 10-minute pace, I'm just going to start walking. And the stronger you get, I think the better off you are. And especially if I plan on doing Wisconsin next year, which is currently a yes in my mind. I am going to sign up as Chattanooga 70.3 is going to be the first race of the year for me. I am thinking about possibly jumping in a couple of maybe a couple, 2 or 3 more running races this year, just to get my butt used to running a little bit faster. That's the only drawback that I think I may have not pushed my running speed enough. But like I said, I did some interval stuff and felt pretty fast. But I think that I need to push the top end a little bit more. And also back to the weights and the lunges and I was doing some of that stuff. But I think now I really want to build my legs over the off season, because it's that run is really about strength, in my opinion. So there you have it, the 10-17 demystified. And I'm going to keep going and toying with all kinds of things. Oh, I thought you were going to sign up for Wisconsin, Lisa. I'm pretty sure I meant to take a couple weeks, of course, and just how I feel right now, it feels like I'm recovered pretty well almost already. So I didn't. Again, it was a tough day out there, and I didn't really enjoy that second lap of the run again. And I know you never really do, but once again, I got a little further. Normally, I start cracking out about the 8-mile mark, and this time I got through almost 12 miles before I knew that I was in trouble as far as my goal. But so I got a little further, but I'm optimistic. Normally at this time, I'm doing another Ironman is the last thing on my mind, but I think I'm in. But we'll see. I'm going to still wait at least another week to make that decision, but we will let you know. All right, crushingiron@gmail.com if you got any questions about the 10-17 run or any other things on your mind that you want to talk about. Thanks for joining me. I'm going to go watch the end of that Astro Red Sox game, which is a hell of a game, which is I've watched the first 5 innings and seen more baseball action than I have in the entire Brewer-Dodger series, which has been kind of depressing. There's just not anything going on. Nobody's hitting. Nobody can hit anymore. But these Red Sox Astros guys can hit. So I'm enjoying that. Thanks for checking in. I will talk with you soon.